In this video, we're going to be installing and going over the new smart fan light from Lumary. So any of you guys that follow the channel are aware that we recently moved to a new location, and that means that a lot of the lighting that we did at the old house, we have an opportunity and a clean slate to do new lighting here. And we've already done a couple videos on GoV out in the yard. Those were areas that were pretty important to me to try to get some extra lighting out there at night. And now that some of the construction we had to get done on the house is done, we are at the point where we can start building rooms like this one. So this is the gaming room upstairs where we're gonna have a lot of different things. Like we have our gaming area, got a few different consoles set up and a couple of the kids' things. I actually game here some myself, not that I have a ton of time, but it is actually pretty comfortable, nice to chill out, hang out, play some games, and just relax on the weekends or evenings or something when I get some free time. Got a nice little air hockey table and then a little computer setup over here with an extra 3D printer and my little A1 Mini, which doesn't quite hold up to some of the other printers that I'm using over there right now, but perfect for the kids. They can print fun stuff, have fun with it, and it's not too big of a deal. So it's a great space to relax, unwind, and just have some fun. But one huge downside was the lighting up here is not great. And it does get a little bit hot in the summers. There is AC on the house, obviously, but the ceilings are pretty high, and it has been a rather hot summer, so it does get a little hot up here. So there was a fan, but the fan was pretty old. I think it was probably original to the house, probably from the 70s. It did spin, but it didn't move much air. So the lighting was not good on it, and the fan itself did not move a ton of air. So big focus was to try to upgrade some of that, and that's where Lumary came in. So they were able to send us 2 of these fans. One is up here and the other one will be going downstairs. So we're going to cover install of this one downstairs, and I actually already got the one up here installed. That way I could get a little bit of a better idea of the install, the app, and just what all comes with it. So as you can see, the fan is right above me here, and it does move quite a bit of air. Install wasn't too bad, but in this particular case, the fan itself is not designed to be in a high-pitched ceiling like this. So I did have to extend some of the wires in order to run them through the extension up to the ceiling, but that wasn't too big of a deal. Just keep that in mind if you are putting it in a room such as this. The kit is not really designed for that kind of roof, but if you're willing to cut and extend some wires, it will work, as you can see. The overall added light output in the room is really good. It lights up most of the corners pretty well. We do have lights on the outside, and it does a pretty good job of getting the light spread out. So very happy with that. Obviously there are multiple colors and different hues that you can use as well, and change those within the app. Another nice touch is the RGB ring around the outside of the fan. So it is nice to see how well it ties in with some of the other RGB that I've already added to the room. So, you know, when you're kind of in that gaming mode and you want to just have some flashy RGBs in the room, make it look a little bit more gamey or a little bit more, you know, enticing to kids, I guess, it is a nice little touch to be able to turn that light off and just have the ring going. It also does have a night light feature, so it can be a lower level of light. Of course, you have the fan, and they all actually show up separately within the application. So for Amazon devices or Google devices, you're going to be able to control that vocally independently. So it does work pretty well. We'll cover that more in the end of this video, but just wanted to give you guys an idea of up here how it works out before we go downstairs, do the install in a different room. Works pretty well in a room like this. The remote is pretty handy, I'll say. It has pretty much everything you could want on it, which is nice to see. Lumary's had remotes on most of the stuff that I've used, and they've been okay. This one just seems a little more feature rich, like different fan settings and different lighting settings. You can change a lot. You can change the colors, you can change the brightness, you can change different aspects of it on the fly. Obviously within the app, you're gonna have more control over this, but this is very nice to see a lot of control for people that may not wanna use the app, or in the case that you're just really quick trying to turn something on and off, you don't have to find your phone, turn on an app, and make it change or makes it do adjustments. You can just pick up the remote, which has a nice little mount that you can put on the wall and makes it a little bit easier to access, in addition to the application that is included as well. One of the things that I really did like about this fan over some of the other options in the market was that a lot of the RGB fans from Lumary and other companies like that, they're just these round fans with like a light bar on the outside and then just this small fan in between. And while I've never really used one of those, it just seems a little weird. They don't quite, I don't know, maybe I'm just used to a traditional fan, so the idea of something that's non-traditional just seems weird, but I also question how much air it can actually move in that style. So I've never tried one, so I can't say that they are good or not, but in my case, I really wanted to go with something that was more of a traditional fan with the smart feature and RGB lighting added, and they nailed it. That's exactly what they got here. You do have the RGB ring, you have the big fan blades. It is a 52-inch fan, and it works great in a room like this. So very happy with it, but let's go ahead and we'll get the other one installed. So we're down here now in my son's room, and he wanted a little bit of a video game setup in here. So that is what we have going on in here. A little bit of a Mario theme with some different Sonic the Hedgehog and stuff like that, which is 3D printed. That was a pretty cool project. Yeah, so RGB fan seems like a perfect fit for the bedroom. And we're gonna go ahead and open up the box, see what we got inside. So right in the top, you have your user manual, and it will go over installation. Now, it's not too complicated overall what all goes into this. If you've installed a fan, you can install this probably without even reading this. This was a little bit more helpful for just getting everything set up, because the process to get it to pair isn't quite what I normally see. Most of the smart home lighting things, you turn the switch on, turn the switch off like 5 times, and it like pulsates, or the first time you turn power on, it'll pulsate and you can connect, and that didn't exactly work that way. So, definitely keep this just in case, but we obviously will cover that in the video here. You also have a couple different hardware kits, and which one you use and what you don't use is gonna depend. This is part of a leveling system. Let's say that the fan ends up being a little bit out of level and it's shaking real bad. This is something you could use to try to dial that in to reduce the vibrations if necessary. I didn't need it upstairs, but it is nice that it's included in there just in case you do. Then we do have a set of screws here for mounting the base of the fan itself. I'm not yet sure if we're going to need these or not here. I did not need them upstairs. And then you have your wire nuts and the screws and washers for the fan blades. So definitely gonna need those. Moving on up top, we have the LED light itself. And for this, you will want to just twist that, and then it will fall right out. You can see the LED array there. Your RGB ring is on the outside, and you do have 2 plugs. So when we go to put the fan on, the final step will be to put this ring on with its 3 screws and to plug in the 2 LED panels to the back side of the fan. And moving into the bottom of the box, we do have our fan blades, and there are 2 colors. You do have the black side, and then you have the wood side. I did the black side upstairs, and I'm gonna do the black side down here as well in this room. Here's the fan motor itself, in addition to the mounting ring for the LED light. Now this is your base plate. This will go against the ceiling, and this is gonna be the part that holds the ball pivot for our fan itself, as well as the cover for that. This will also be where the controller hides up inside, so it'll go against the ceiling. Now in the controller, it is a fairly simple setup. You just have 2 wires. So If you're familiar with fan lighting and things like that, you normally have two wires. You have a fan wire and a light wire, and that way in the event that you have wired up two separate switches, you can control the fan and light independently. In the event you only have one switch, typically you have to flip the switch and the light turns on and the fan, and then you have pull strings that allow you to activate or deactivate the fan or the light or both. And in this case, everything is pretty much going to be controlled with the app or with the remote. So it is just a 2-wire setup here. There is no separate wire for the fan, but you'll just wire that in. And then in case of remote, I would just mount that to the wall right next to the switch. And so you basically get the same option of being able to control independently just by pushing that fan button or pushing the light button on the remote. But it will not give you the ability to be able to control them independently via a switch. So just keep that in mind. I don't think it's a huge negative, being that you do have the remote and you do have the app. But if that is something that's extremely important, just keep that in mind. Beyond that, there are 3 plugs on this that will go to various components within the fan, and you will see those wires on the back side of the motor housing. Now you also do have 2 different size extensions for the fan from the ceiling. So you have the longer version and the shorter version here. And basically this ball will sit in here, and so you can get a little bit of an angle out of the stock system. Now, obviously the roof line that we had upstairs was a pretty tight pitch, and it is not going to be able to do something like that. So once again, if you are trying to go to a little bit more of a custom pitch or length, you may have to customize some things or use a different extension arm or something like I did upstairs. But you know, in 90+% of roof lines, you're going to be pretty flat, so you won't have an issue. But height could be an issue if you are in maybe a basement scenario or somewhere where you don't have like 8-foot roof line. It could be problematic to put a fan like this in. So definitely keep that in mind. It is not a tight fit fan to the ceiling. It will hang down a little bit. Now, changing out between the 2 size rods is fairly simple. There is a set screw on this ball, as well as your grounding screw. You'll just back that out, drop the ball down, then this pin will come right out. And just keep in mind that the shorter one does have a threaded hole for the ground on one side. You're going to want to line that up. Go ahead and put your pin back through and drop it into place. And then you're just going to tighten down both your ground screw and that little set screw in there. Now, moving on to the fan motor itself, you're gonna cut the zip tie that's holding the wires so that they can extend out. We're also gonna remove this pin here. You just got a clip that holds the pin in place, pull that out, pull that pin out, and then you're gonna wanna loosen up these 2 set screws, just enough that we can slide the shaft in. Next up, moving on to the shaft, you're gonna have these 3 main components here. The first one is going to go like so, and the next one goes like so. And that way we are ready to run our wires through the shaft. So we're going to run the wires up through the shaft like so, just like that. And then we're going to drop this down into place. Then we're going to go ahead and line that up with the hole and slide our pin through, keeping in mind that those wires are in there, so you may have to fish it around a little bit to get it to slide through. Now we'll just secure that pin back in place, and then we can drop the cover down on top. Now, on the top side, this is where our clip is going to hold everything against the ceiling like so. So this should give you a little bit of an idea as to how much space you're going to have from the ceiling to the bottom of the fan. It's right around 1 foot. Maybe a little bit more when you add the light and the fan blades to it. So it's definitely something to keep in mind depending on the height of your roof line. Now, to get you a little bit of a better visual of the controller itself, it's going to slide in like so in between there. And you do have the plugs here. So one of them is going to go here. One of them is going to go over here. And then the last one here will actually plug into the pigtail that's coming out of the controller. And then you're going to have your neutral and live wires, which will wire into the light switch itself. So to give you an idea of the fan layout, I'm going to go ahead and pull this light down and we'll get up there and we'll start mounting our bracket here. So we're just gonna have to mount this bracket to the ceiling, and then we'll be able to connect our wires to the outlet socket and then plug these in after we secure that ball in place. So install is actually not gonna be too bad. Now, it's always a good idea to flip the main breaker when you're actually removing or changing or installing lights. So you will need to identify which is your neutral, which is your live, and which is your ground. They're generally pretty easy to determine. The white is almost always the neutral, and then the darker color is usually your live wire. Now, many times it's black, sometimes it might be blue. It does depend if you have multiple wires ran. If you do have that extra switch for a light and a fan, then you will probably have a fourth wire in there. The ground is almost always the bare wire that will be hanging down. So once you have all of your wires connected to the controller, you can go ahead and mount the fan itself. So after the fan is mounted, we can go ahead and plug in all of our wires that we ran up through into the controller. You also have your grounds here, and you're gonna have one for the fan, one for the fan body mount. These are the two green wires. And then you're gonna have your ground wire itself. And once again, this is usually just a bare copper wire. Once all the bare wires are connected with the wire nuts, we can move on to our plugs. Now it is labeled which is which, RGB, CCT, and motor, and it does say on the top of the controller which is which, but they will only fit in one hole, so you're not really gonna be able to accidentally plug one into the wrong hole. Once you have all of those plugged in, then you can go ahead up here, make sure all your wires are tucked up out of the way, and you're going to slide that controller up through the top there. Once that's in place, just visually check everything, make sure nothing came unplugged, nothing fell out of any of the wire nuts. And then there are these two screws on the bottom of the mount. They should already be loose. You're just gonna slide this cover up and it'll go right into place like that. You just twist. Then you can take a screwdriver, a little stubby works real well here, and you're just gonna tighten down those set nuts to keep this little ring in place here. And just like that, we're in place. Once again, you do have some angle depending on your roof line. You will be able to mount it. I believe it's up to a 15-degree angle. Ours, it's gonna be perfectly straight, so it'll just be like that. Now moving on to the fan blades. Once again, you do wanna keep in mind that there is a brown bottom and a black bottom. So depending on which one that you wanna actually display, here's how you're going to install the fan blades. In my case, I want the black facing down. So I'm gonna install it like that. Now that is where these little washers and screws are gonna come in. So take the screw, take the washer, and this will be what secures the blades in place. So you need 3 of these for each one of the blades. All right, so we got the fan blades installed, all 15 screws. It does take a little bit of time there. You wanna make sure you put a washer on each one of them. That is kind of like a vibration isolator, so it will help to reduce the vibration noises or anything like that. So you definitely wanna make sure you use those washers. Moving on, there are these 3 screws here. We're gonna have to remove them to be able to mount this in place. Now here's something I did figure out upstairs. The input for this ring, it's basically just a big strip. So the strip starts where this wire goes in. So if you keep that in mind, the ring, it can do the animation in a circle. Well, if you're looking at it from here, it might look a little chunky, like it'll come around, and then when it goes here, it doesn't just keep flowing, it sort of just stops, and then the new flow starts. So it looks a little bit weird. If you know addressable, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Well, if you aim this away from the door, then the only thing you'll see is just clean flowing animations. Now, depending on the circumstance and where you're actually installing this, there may not be an ideal place to put that, but just keep in mind that that wire is going to look a little bit off with this. So ideally put that in a location where it's less likely to be seen. It's not a big deal, but it will look a little more clean and uniform if you put it in that location. So the way these 3 holes line up, you do have several different options, 3 different options of where you orient that. But we're just gonna go ahead and put the screws through the 3 holes, line them up how we want them, and then screw them into place. Once those 3 screws are in place, we can go ahead and plug in our wires here. And you can just kind of give them a little bit of a pull them down to the length that you need them here. And we'll go ahead and plug in the small one here first, followed by the bigger one for the actual lights. And that is the plug for the RGB on the outside. This one is for the main lights on the inside here. You can go ahead and tuck that in. You do want to keep in mind that any wiring that is hanging down in front of the light output will affect the output of the light itself. So it might cast a shadow. It's not a huge deal, but you know, if you can tuck them up out of the way a little bit and not have it just hanging down in front of the LEDs, it will look a little bit better. Now we can take our cover, line them up with the holes. There's little indentations here that line up with the little notches on the side here. Lock it in, and then just a little bit of a twist, and it'll go right in place. All right, so the light switch is on, and obviously I am standing on a ladder here, so it's not nearly this close to my head. Standing on the ground directly here in an 8-foot room, you can see plenty of clearance. It's not too bad at all, but you do have that longer shaft in the event that you have a higher ceiling, you want to bring it down a little bit, but overall, this is pretty average. All right, now moving on to the app part here, you do need to get the fan to go into pairing mode. And once again, as I mentioned, it does not seem to do that by default. Most of the time I get smart lights, it seems like that's the first thing it does when it starts up. But in the case of the fan, it does not. It's not too hard to get it to do it though. On the remote, you are just going to hold down the fan on off button for 5 seconds. And as you can see, it starts to pulsate now. That means that you are in the pairing mode. Go ahead and push the plus sign in the top corner, hit add device. And you can see it popped right up there. Go ahead and hit add. Now you're gonna wanna connect to your Wi-Fi network. And in the case of mine, I do have an IoT, which stands for Internet of Things. If you do have this feature on your Wi-Fi, it is worth turning on and using. Not a lot of them do, but some of them do. So I mean, if you do, definitely use it. But basically, this will keep these devices isolated on the network so they don't have the access to your computers and main devices within the home. But you go ahead and type in your password there in the bottom and go ahead and hit connect. And you'll see it will spin dial here as it gets everything connected. And when that's done, you can hit done, or you can hit the little pencil icon on the side there and rename it. I am gonna go ahead and rename it. All right, there we go, and hit done. And the big thing with naming is that it will make it a little bit easier when you're using the Amazon device to be able to control the lights. If you do have a name that is more unique to the room that you have it in. So it's not a bad idea to do it if you are thinking about doing voice command for your lighting. But if not, no problem. You can leave it as the default. You won't have any issues. Up next is your colors here. Now I'm going to turn off the white here. That's your main light there. That way it's easier to see the ring. Now we turn that color ring on, and you can do any solid color that you want using this little color section here. Alternately, you can go into this little paintbrush icon here, and there's a bunch of DIYs. I'm just gonna do the rainbow one. It's a pretty familiar one for anyone with addressable, and it generally looks pretty good. A nice little accent to the room. Now, visually speaking, I can see it even when the light is on. I know the light is probably washing out the camera, so you can't really see it. But I can clearly see the RGB ring going around in circles around the white light. So rest assured it does not wash it out. And you also have your music mode here, which will make it pulsate. Let's say you have your phone out and you want to make it dance to some music that's got going on in the room or something. It's a nice little way to spice up the room, or a little party get together or something if you're doing it. So nice little feature to see. And then up next we do have the fan control, and you do have different speed settings up to 6 as far as how fast the fan will go. You have your nature mode. I think that kind of like varies the speed of the flow to kind of simulate the wind blowing or something like that. You can change your direction of flow from forward to reverse, which is a nice feature. Most fans have it, but you usually got to climb up there and flip a switch on the fan somewhere to make it do it. This does it within the app, so you do have that ability, for different times of the year to change how fast it's flowing at. But I'm going to do a fresh. We'll go ahead and just turn that thing up to 6 and get it blowing. Just see how much airflow we get in here, which that was one thing I was pretty impressed with it. It did seem to move a lot of air. It is a 52-inch fan, so not a small one by any means, but it most certainly moves air. And you can see it's spinning, and it is pretty darn stable. I don't see any movement up there, so the balance is pretty darn good on this one. I saw very similar on the one upstairs, and keeping in mind that that is on a rod that's hanging down about a meter from the ceiling, so it is a lot harder to make them stable, and it still did a really good job. So I know they included the balance add-on little piece for the fan blades, but I do not think I will be needing that on either one of these fans. And moving on, you do have some extra features here. You can set up a countdown or a timer. Maybe you only want it to run for 30 minutes and then shut the fan off, or maybe you want the fan to kick on at noon every day when you're not home so it can get the air flowing. You can set stuff like that. So a few different nice little features to see in here. You can set how gradually the fan speeds up and slows down, how fast to the time of the lights to turn on and turn off. Maybe you don't want instant light, maybe you want it to be a little bit more gradual, and that's not too bad of a feature to have there. Now you do have your light strip line order here, and that basically just changes the color layout. Obviously it is already set at what it is, GRB. So there's no real reason to change that out there, but interesting to see the setting in there for it. You also have your light strip length, and that is currently set to 90. Looks like it can go clear up to 300 LEDs on that. And you do have your memory set. So let's say that you still want to use the light switch for normal operation. You don't want to use voice activation, app, or remote. You can do that. You just have this restore memory, which will put the fan back in the state that it was used previously. So that's nice to see. You can also do an initial mode or a customized. So, default color and brightness, customized, or restore. For me, I kind of feel like I want whatever it was last to be the thing that it is when I turn it back on. So I'm going to do restore memory, which is the default, and keep it there. Now, in the event that you do want to use voice activation or have this connected to other things like Amazon or Google Home devices, you do the little pin in the top corner there, and that's where you're going to get your third-party control. You can connect to the Google or the Amazon device there, and that will sync this in with your system. You have a few other settings in here. Check your network and message notifications, device information, but for the most part, there's not a lot other stuff in here that you're really going to need. Third-party control is the main one, as well as if you do want to go back and change the name of the device, this would be where you would do it. You can also change the location, which is not a bad way if you want to control an entire room, but you're able to do that within the Amazon app itself. So you can go in there and you can set a room and set which devices are in that room and control it that way, which is the way I usually do it. But if you wanted to control each room via the Lumary app, let's say you have a bunch of Lumary devices in each room and you want to control that, this would be a great way to do that. You can just set that to whatever room you have. But in my case, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm not going to set it. Going back out, you can see all the buttons there. It's pretty rich, the amount of stuff that you do have here. Even your main power button, you just hit that and everything turns off. hit that and everything turns right back on. Now that's pretty much it. The only thing left is the remote itself. And once again, you can just use the remote, but it does have this little mounting point here, and you can put that somewhere on your wall, close to your bed, somewhere else if you prefer, and that will make it easy to get to and use in the event that you need to. So I'm just gonna mount it right here next to the switch. You have the bracket itself and this little pack of screws here that comes with it. Now, they do include the little drywall anchors. I'm not gonna worry about it on this one because there's really not a ton of pressure that's gonna be on the switch, but it's never necessarily a bad thing other than the fact that you're gonna put a little bit of a bigger hole if you do use the drywall anchors that are included. Once you figure out where you want it, you just go ahead and screw it in, and now you got a place for your remote. So now that we got it installed, it gives you a better idea of the install, the fan, the output and everything. I will say that the fan does move a lot of air. I love the smart home features of it. To the best of my knowledge, this is currently still the only smart fan on the market that uses more of a traditional fan style, which, you know, for what it's worth, that is nice to see. I do think that the light output itself is not amazing. Now, it's not bad, and I do also have to keep in mind that I'm coming from one of these flat wafers that sits high, flat up on the ceiling and broadcasts out very evenly, whereas this one comes down about a foot or a little bit more, really, and that way it does affect its ability to output light directionally. So I noticed that in the corners of the room, it does seem to be a little bit darker than what it was with this wafer light. But I also realized that in the event that I bought any other kind of fan, I probably would have seen the same issue because of being lower from the ceiling. But overall, if I'm standing directly under it, or even just a little bit to the sides, the overall output is bright. So I don't think it's a brightness issue. And for a bedroom, I think this is more than enough light to be able to do what needs to be done. In the event that more lighting is needed in one corner or another, I can address that with floor lamps or something like that. But the important factors were the fan itself, and that works great, and the cool factor of being able to make it a smart light fan combo and that RGB ring around the outside that makes it just a little bit fancier. Voice activation, timers, all those things that I can set, make it turn on, turn off as I need it to, as well as the remote that's included, which is a nice little feature to be able to control the speed, control other aspects. You can flip that rotation on or off if you want it to suck air up or blow air down. If you're familiar with the ideas of moving air around at different times of the year, it makes it a little bit easier to utilize that feature that most fans have that honestly most of us probably don't even utilize. Not always best to blow air down. Sometimes you want to suck it up. So being able to do that on an app and just go in and push a button, I can be in the other room and do it. I don't even need to be in here to do it. So that's a pretty cool feature as well. I think overall, I think Lumary did a great job. I love the fact that they went with a traditional fan style. I think that they nailed most of those traditional things that we see in a fan, and they brought the smart lighting over to it, which is great to see. And if you're looking for a smart fan to put in your home, I would definitely check out the Lumary Smart Ceiling Fan Light. I'll have a link in the description of this video to Amazon, where we do get a little bit of a kickback if you use that link, and we greatly appreciate that. But you can also find it on Lumary's website as well. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks for watching, and check out nextlevelneo.com for all of your LED lighting needs. Thanks.